And let us give charity. We'll begin to good morning, everyone. Good morning. We'll begin learning Torah, or in just a moment, the teachings of the first Rebbe of Chabad, Chabad Hasidut, to bring Moshiach now, reveal the oneness of God in the whole world. Let's first of all give charity. Here we have charity. Here we have our coins. Here we have our box. Here we have our. We're giving charity on the condition that God should protect all the soldiers and save the Jewish people from the whole entire world, transform the world to a godly place, and that all the Jews should come to their Jewish senses and wake up, start doing the commandments. Okay, here we go. Now, let me just do this. 1 second here. We're learning about the garments of the Kohen, of the priests. About the garments of the priests. Okay, the purpose of the holy temple. Oh, Shalom, David. Shalom. Good morning, David. The purpose of the holy temple was to reveal the holiness of this physical world. The purpose of the holy temple is to reveal the holiness of this physical world. What does it mean, the holiness? God is creating everything. He's creating everything for a purpose. And when we feel the purpose in everything, we feel that God is creating everything so that everything becomes holy. And this began really, the first time it was ever done was when the tabernacle was built in the desert, which is essentially the holy temple, the forerunner of the holy temple. It was material, physical, actual things that were in the world: gold, silver, different types of cloths, different types of wood, one type of wood, actually, wood, but actually physical things that could, and those things became holy. Those things became holy. Those things became holier than heaven. All the angels are calling out to God, holy, holy, holy. Well, it says that God is the God of hosts. Malo kala oretz kavodo. The whole world is filled with God's glory. This world and every detail in it. That's the goal. The goal is to reveal godliness in this world. And the first time it was ever done was in the temple, and even more, even the garments that the Kohanim wore. But that was only an example of what it's supposed to be in the whole world. And when the third temple is built, Mashiach is going to build a third temple. That's one of the goals of Mashiach. He's going to build a third temple, and then the whole world is going to be even holier. It's going to show that everyone in the world is chosen by God to be who He is. Of course, the Jewish people, they have their special, how do you say, their special unique obligations in the world that they have according to the Torah. But nevertheless, everyone is chosen by God, because every animal is chosen by God. Every rock is chosen by God. Everything is chosen by. Everything is done by God's choice. But the Jewish people, especially, in a special way, because they're the ones that are responsible for the whole world. Okay, so we're reading now an example, the writings of an example of a Jew who's responsible for the whole world. That's the Rebbe. And Mashiach is going to be the one who's going to teach us how to do this. And so all the Rebbes of Chabad, they were the Mashiach of their generation. So we're learning the words of Mashiach. It's called Torah to Mashiach. Mashiach is going to just make everyone aware of God right here. And people won't think about going to heaven anymore. I mean, they can if they want to, because there is such a thing. But it won't be important to people. It won't be so dominant anymore, or it won't be rejected, right? It won't be rejected because, there's no such thing as heaven. Forget about it. There is such a thing as heaven, but it's not that important. What's important in this world? Okay, so is this world. So now we're going to learn about the garments of the Kohanim, of the priests. God says to Moses, V'asita bigdei kodesh, you should make holy garments. Holy garments, holy clothes. Can you imagine that? Holy pants, a holy shirt. What does that mean? A holy shirt. Even though they say that, these other religions, this is a holy shirt. Our founder, he wore it like 2,000 years ago. Our founder, this is the shirt that he wore when he went to hear the pants. Okay, but they were saying eventually everybody's pants, everybody's shirt is going to be holy. Okay, so beginning by the the garments of Aaron. Now, what does holy mean? Like I said before, it reveals that there's a creator that's creating it. If Asita Big Day Kodesh, you should make holy garments for Aaron, your brother. God is speaking to Moses. What happened? What am I doing over here? What's going on? Oh, okay. What happened? There we go. Somehow or other. Oh, here we go. And you, Moses, speak to all Chachamei Lev, to all of the wise men, the what are they called? Artisans. The Asher Maleitim Ruach Chachma Asu Big Day Kodesh Big Day Aaron. They should make Aaron to make him holy. Okay, so who's making these garments? Here it says Moses. God is speaking to Moses. You should make the garments, and then after that it says Moses, you speak to the tailors, the holy tailors, whatever, and that they'll make the garments. They'll make the garments. And then it says, V'asu Big Day Kodesh, and they should make the garments. This seems to be in talking about everybody, all the Jewish people. They should make the garments for Aaron, your brother, and his sons. So it seems over here that there's 3 different commandments to make the garments: to Moses, to the artisans, the tailors, and to all the Jewish people. The Havin, we have to understand, Shlosh Asiyos, they have to understand what are these 3 times God is telling them these 3 to do these 3 orders. Should be Big Day Aaron, in the garments of Aaron. Shall Moshe, one of them is Moses has to make them. Shall Chachmei Lev, that the special tailors have to make them. And Stam V'asu, and another time it just says, and they should make it. This implies that all the Jewish people should make it. Okay. Let me make this a little bigger. Here we go. If we can do it, why not? So again, the purpose of the Holy Temple is to show how holy this physical world is now, all the time, constantly, everywhere, from the North Pole to the South Pole, from the East Pole to the West Pole, whatever it is, the whole entire globe is holy because there's people, and people have free will, and people can use their free will to serve the Creator or not. They can choose their free will to be selfish, or to be attached to themselves, or to be attached to the truth. And so this over concern with going to heaven is selfishness. Right? All the religions which deal with, you do this, you're going to go to heaven, you're not going to go to hell. So it's selfish. I mean, it might be, there certainly is a motivation to people to do what the religion says. But that's not the goal of creation. The goal of creation is that everyone and eventually everything should just be directed to the Creator. Because after all, everything is just being created. Everything we are is just charity from God. God is just creating us all the time. We're really nothing of our own selves. We don't feel this. But once a person does feel it, so it becomes activated. You never become depressed. You'll never be get addicted to things, and you won't get angry. You don't have, they say lazy or confused or sick. There won't be any sickness anymore. Okay, so it says, so let's start off here. We're talking about the Holy Temple. This is supposed to be the point, if you want to call it like an injection. They have a person is sick, so you have a hypodermic needle they put into his skin, they inject medicine, he gets healthy. The Holy Temple, that was like the hypodermic needle into the world to make the whole world healthy. So everything, just like a hypodermic needle, has to be sterile, and everything has to have the right ingredients inside of the what is it, the syringe, whatever it's called. So also the same thing as the Holy Temple. It has to be clean. It has to be exactly according to God's order. So one of those things is the garments of Aaron. Aaron, who Mishiva Ro'im, is one of the 7 shepherds, Hamafarnasim, that nourish Umamshichim, and they draw down godliness, inspiration, and certainty of God's existence to all of the Jewish people. Me Orein So, from the infinite light of God, blessed be He. Now God chose the Jewish people, He took them out of Egypt, gave them the Torah. So the Jewish people, they're the ones that are supposed to teach the whole world this. They are, so to speak, the doctors of the world, And the holy temple with everything in it, that's like the hypodermic needle. I just made that up, by the way. But this is a fact. Shahu ish chesed. This is Abraham. We'll talk about Abraham in a moment. Aaron. Aaron's main thing is to reveal godliness into the world. I'm sure you've heard stories. There's stories everywhere. There's stories about people who give blessings. They give blessings, not only in Judaism. They give blessings. They have the power of healing. They have the power of healing, right? There are people that are like that. There are people that they have a power in their hands that they can make people better. It happens. To give what does it mean? Make a person better. Everyone is supposed to be healthy. Ideally, there's not supposed to be any sickness in the world. For instance, when God gave the Torah, everyone got healed. The blind could see, the deaf could hear. Well, that's what ideally everyone's supposed to be healthy. A person that has the ability to give blessings, I mean, he just makes things the way they're supposed to be. Just makes things the way. That's Aaron. Aaron is a man of kindness. He draws down God's love, reveals more of God's love to the world. He was called the high priest, the big priest, Kohen Gadol. He drew down this level of great love, Ahava Rabbah, tremendous great love. What does it mean, great love? Great love means that when you really feel that God is creating you and you feel how great God is, then you feel how good God is, infinitely good, then you feel how rich you are, that God is really creating me. He's giving me everything. You have a tremendous love for God. He's giving unconditional love. God has for us. So we have unconditional love for him. That's what's called big love. So Aaron was the one who drew down this big love of God into the world. Big de Aaron, and the garments of Aaron, Hemalavushim, they are garments for this love. Huh? Like, yeah, let's say a person that's a pianist, great pianist, beautiful music. You listen to his music, you can't move. It just hypnotizes you. It's so beautiful. But the main thing is the pianist, right? But without a piano, we can't play. You can't hear the music. But the piano on its own, of course, is nothing. What's a piano? Go to any piano store. There's nothing beautiful there. You have to, so it's the same thing. Aaron is he's like the musician. He knows how to bring love into the world, but there has to be garments. There has to be instruments. What are the instruments? That's the garments of Aaron. That's the garments we're going to talk about. His pants and his hat, his turban and his cloak and his shirt. And there were no shoes. Kohen didn't wear shoes. What it says, Yomi Mitzaro, it says days will be formed. Excuse me. It says days will be formed. The days, those are garments. Oh, now we're getting something very interesting. Like it says in the Zohar, like it says Avram Zokin. Avram was an old man. This is in the Torah. It's a sentence in the Torah. Avram Zokin Baba Yomim. Avram was old. He was coming in days. It says this is when he was marrying off his son Yitzchak. He was coming in days. What does it mean? He was old. Abram was old, and he was coming in days. What does it mean? Coming in days. What does that mean? Bob Yamim came in days. If he's old, he has a lot of days with him. It says extra words, it's not extra. It's coming to tell us something. Yamim ilaim, these are the upper days. The inu levushin, that they are garments. How are days? Days are units of time. How can they be garments? Call neshama, every soul, yeshlo levushim, has garments of Torah and commandments, that a person can do them, umekavanos of mitzvahs, and from the intention of the emotion that you arouse when you do the commandments. In other words, you feel you're doing the commandment of God, the genuineness with which you do the commandments, veruta the liba, and the arousal of your heart, when you do the commandments properly with the proper emotions, makes garments for Gan Eden Elyon. This makes garments for the upper heaven. Over mitzvahs maisios, and if you just do garments, if you just do the commandments without any intention, nasa levushin, then they're also made garments for the lower heaven. Kanoda. I'll explain this in just a minute. The upper heaven is usually the world of Bria, and the lower heaven is what's called the world of Yetzira. Hayamim akatzuvim, the days which are set for man, mispar yamei shenei chayav, how long a person will live, kol kach yamim, how many days b'shir levushim, this is how many garments he is supposed to make for the Torah and the commandments that he's supposed to do every day. Okay, let's explain this. I'll try to explain this. Before the world was created, there was no time. There was no time. Time is a creation. Time is not, if you want to call it, it's not really real. Just like nothing's really real. It's all being created by God. Okay, but in that, the fact that it's created by God, that makes it real. But just to feel a little bit of the, you want to call it the absurdity of the whole thing. So it means that before the world was created, there was no time. So that is itself is, what do they call it? An oxymoron. Right? That's what it is, oxymoron, that's a word. There can't be such a thing as before the world is created. There can't be such a thing. Before is a temporal concept. Before and after, during. Right? That whole idea of something before something else, that's time. That's what makes up time. And before the world was created, there was no time. So there can't be such a thing as before the world was created. But how can that be? The Jewish people, for instance, we celebrate Rosh Hashanah. That's the 6th day of creation. Before that, 7 days before that, there was nothing. And then all of a sudden, everything started. So if there was a point where it started, there was a point before that, right? There's no. Oh, no. When everything started, that's when time was created. There was no before. But what does it mean? How does it mean? It doesn't make any sense. So, I mean, actually, you can say, if you think about it, if there was no before, so there was no after either. Something that comes after something has to be something before it. And there was nothing before time. So, okay, what we're saying doesn't make any sense, but that's the fact. The fact is that the whole world is a big miracle. And the time is a big miracle, and that we're a big miracle. And for some reason, unexplainable, God decided to unfold this big miracle in a thing which was called time. So there was nothing before this world. And in a way, there's not going to be anything after the world, because it says when the dead raise, there's not going to be any more time anymore either. There won't be any more death. So what's there going to be? So in your imagination, you probably figure there's going to be either a big blackout, or there's going to be a big whiteout, or there's going to be something, but it's not so. This world is infinitely important to God. This world is infinite. It's infinite. It's in God's mind. It's in God's mind. So what we're doing right now, every single second of life, the reason that it seems to be unfolding in time is because we don't see from a higher place. We don't see if we would see from a higher place, we would realize that's the whole idea of prophecy. Prophets are able to get to a higher place, so they see the time is not so time. They can see in the future. The future becomes the present. They see what's going to be. It's like right now. Okay, this basically is not understandable, and don't think that I understand it either, because I don't understand it. I think it's not understandable at all. But why does God make the whole business? Why does he make time? Why is there such a thing? If it really doesn't exist, and if it's really just, so why does God make it at all? Why is there such a thing? So the answer is that every unit of what we call time is really infinite if it's used properly. It's an opportunity to use properly, because God made man with free will, and free will unfolds according to time. Free will. So man has a chance to use his free will over and over and over again. And also a man has a chance to repent for if he made mistakes in the past. So there's a thing of past and future, etc. So it all depends on each and every human being to realize who he, she, it really is. Says the Rebbe, that's the reason God gave the Torah. When the Torah was even before the world, the Torah was the part of this blueprint. And why do we know there's time? Because it says in the Torah there's time. And the first day God created this, and the second day God created this. So in other words, time is supposed to be, is like a garment, it's a vessel, and it has to be used properly. And if your time is used properly, then it becomes above time. That's the idea of going to heaven. Heaven is above time. It says if the Torah and the commandments that a person does in this world are done with really deep intention, then you get to the upper heaven, a higher level of truth. The lower heaven is lower level of truth. But these are just levels of infinity. The heavens are levels of revelation of God's infinite, even though the upper heavens are also not infinite. There's only a certain amount of time that the souls remain in heaven. Okay, but let's just go back to reality now. Every day we have, let's say you don't believe in all this stuff that I just said. The fact of the matter is that every day is a garment. Every unit of time, if used properly, it becomes a garment for the soul. That's the reason the soul comes into the body. Okay, garments. So now we see that garments are not just things that you put on, the Gucci or whatever it is, you have the proper, how do you say, the name tag. Garments. I'm just laughing because once I went to China, me and my wife went to China, and we went to a store, a high exclusive store. They have clothes there. They have a suit for for $5,000, and it's these names, Armani, whatever these names are of the suits.
5,000 for a suit?
What? Oh, just ridiculously high prices, and people actually buy this stuff. Then right down the street, you have copies, and you can't really tell that it's a copy. And the Chinese are like experts at copying. I think their whole world is copied, and they have exactly the same thing at for $100. They have undershirts and regular shirts for like a 50th of the price, 10th of the price, almost exactly the same thing. Copies. They're just great at copies, but they have the original one. There's people there that I guess they must have money. I don't get what's going on over there. But they are the incredible. Maybe I exaggerated. Maybe suits are not $5,000. Maybe $1,000. Maybe I don't remember the prices. I didn't buy. Of course, I didn't buy anything. So it says these are the days that a person has. Those are garments. Those are garments. And maybe you can have false garments. You can have maybe let's say like this: the garments that if you really have intention when you're doing the Torah and the commandments, that's like the $5,000 suit. And if you don't have any intention, then that's like the $100 suit. But still, both of them, you're doing the Torah and the commandments, even without any intention. It still is a suit. It says a garment for heaven, for eternal. Hine Noda, it is known, Ki Avram, who Avram is, a Roa Rishon. Abraham was the first shepherd, Yeshiva Roim, for the 7 shepherds of the Jewish people. What does it mean, shepherds? He nourished the Jewish souls. He nourished Jewish faith. He nourished Jewish love of God. This is love. He gave love, the Kalalas and the Shemesh Israel. He nourished them. He inspired the Jewish people to have love. Just like a great pianist. I know people say, as soon as I heard this pianist play, I knew I wanted to be a pianist. It was so beautiful, I wanted to do it. Well, Abraham nourished love. And as soon as people saw Abraham and they realized what was motivating him, they said, wow, this is, the God of Israel. This is good. Like it says, Avram Oavi, like it says, God said to Abraham, Abraham is my beloved. Abraham loves me. By efforts, the difference between Aaron, who also is bringing love to the Jewish people, and Abraham, Yuvan can be understood according to what it says in the Zohar. What does it say in the Zohar? It says, now the Zohar is a Kabbalistic book, which was written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai about 1,800 years ago. Every year at Lag BaOmer, which is like almost in the middle between Passover, 33 days after Passover, that's the day he passed away. There's like hundreds of thousands of people that go up to Miron. We'll see what it's going to be this year, because one year there was Corona, one year they were shooting missiles, but there's still, nevertheless, there's still 100. One year I remember they cordoned the whole place off so that people couldn't go there. The police, they decided it was dangerous. Maybe that was when the Corona was there. And that year there was only 50,000 people that went up there. They all broke through everything. They came through the forest, they came through this. But in a regular normal year, there's about 500,000 people that go up there in the course of the day. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he wrote the Holy Zohar. And the Zohar says, Eat chesed ve'it chesed. There is love and there is love. There's what's called chesed, which is called world love. And there's chesed, which is called great love. That's Abraham and Aaron. World love and great love. Two different types of love that the Jewish people need. It's essential to Judaism. Abraham inspired one of them, and Aaron inspired the other. It's present in each one of us. Just has to be woken up. Woken up. And this, of course, is expressed through these garments. But let's talk about it. Biranian explanation is lahine. Note it is known that eteruta de latata, eteruta de laela. That with an arousal from below, and as what we do here, eteruta de laela, there is an arousal from above, God reacts. Very basic principle of Judaism, and one of the jobs of Hasidut is to bring this out. God reacts to whatever we do. God reacts. God cares. God, we are important to God. We are very essential, if you want to call it, to God. God created the world. It says we make God happy. We give God energy. We give God nachas ruach, pleasure. So God reacts to what we do. Hine, behold, even before we do anything, there's always, God is aroused to love us, for instance, even before we do anything. In order that there should be an arousal from below, to arouse a person, to wake him from his sleep, from the foolishness of the world. That the nature of the person is drawn after the world. And then instead, rather to serve God. Okay, what's the goal? What's talking about here? God reacts to what we do, but first of all, we have to do. So when we do something for God, we do what God wants, and we do with an awareness of God, that God is everything, God is creating everything, God is before everything. God is creating us only to serve him, to do the Torah, etc. When we realize that and feel that, so God reacts. The problem is that we have to do something first. It's very simple. All we have to do is do something. It's like push this button and you get $1 million. I don't want to push the button. Listen, just push the button and do $1 million. You get $1 million. I don't want to push it. So I'll encourage it. So what if a person doesn't even know about the button? Here we're saying a person that does Torah and the commandments, when you do Torah and commandments, God reacts. But what if you don't know about Torah and commandments? Or what if you do know there's such a thing as Torah and commandments, you don't want to do it? Why should I do it? I mean, why should you do it? Because God says. Who's God? Who says, just because God says, let him do it. Let the religious people, I don't want to do it. What God says. So there has to be an arousal. A person has to get aroused, right? Something inspired. There has to be inspiration. A person requires inspiration. Who gives him inspiration? A person can't inspire himself. Something has to instigate the whole thing. So it says God does it. God inspires. All of a sudden, a person gets out that thing. He reads in the paper. Like now is a big time. Now is a big time for inspiration. God doesn't inspire you necessarily. All of a sudden, a big white light appears, and you've got the light. I realized it, right? I have seen the way. I have seen. No, it doesn't mean that. It means that somebody can call you a dirty Jew in the street. It could be that you read in the newspaper about how the Hamas is treating the Jews. You read in the newspaper about how the Jews hate the Jews, right? How the Jews hate the Jews. How there's pro-Palestinian Jews on campus, right? And they hate the Jews. What's going on over here? All of a sudden you start thinking, what is a Jew? An arousal from above. That happened to me. I was not a religious Jew 50 years ago. 50 years more, 55 years ago. It's 54 years ago. I heard a lecture from a big professor, and he said something anti-Semitic in the lecture, and I had no Jewish identity. I knew I was a Jew, but it meant absolutely nothing to me. It meant less to me being a Jew than being an American. I knew I was an American. I was happy to be an American. I liked America. I liked American, music. I liked the American flag. Something that meant much more to me than being a Jew. Right? In fact, being a Jew meant maybe less than anything else in the world. I didn't even know what it meant to be a Jew. What is it? All of a sudden, this big professor said the Jews they're the problem of the world. That woke me up. I thought, what's this professor even talking about Judaism? Right? That started me off. That has to be arousal from above. All of a sudden, I started thinking, what is Judaism? What's going on? Something that God sends all sorts of different messengers and things and ways and incidents to all of a sudden wake a person up. Okay, so it says, let's do this again. According to how a person arouses from below, there it says, it's known that according to arousal from below, it says an arousal, God reacts. But before a person starts acting from below, kadma, there has to be, first of all, an arousal from above. God has to send something to turn you on. Today, in order that we should have an arousal from below to inspire us. Namely, to rouse the heart of a person, lakitzo, to wake him up from his sleep in the world, that the nature of a person is he's drawn after the world. The world is real. You don't feel that God is real. There has to be something to wake you up and turn your attention to the Creator. And this first arousal that God arouses us, that's called world love. World love. That God sent me this professor, or he sends whatever. Some Chabadnik in the street says, put on tefillin, sir, are you Jewish? You read in the newspaper about the anti-Semitism or about what's going on in Israel. I still think I told this story a lot of times, but when there was the 6-Day War, my father had a brother. They were partners together. They were pharmacists. My father's brother was a very depressed sort of a person. I remember, I don't think I ever spoke one word to him except hello. And I was always the one that said hello. Never what's nothing. He was a very, very, how do you say, not excitable person. Very, a depressed person. He was a miserable person. I didn't know anything more about him. When there was the 6-Day War, he took all of the money out of his bank account. He had like $50,000 something. In those days, that was 67. So took all of the money out of his bank account, every penny, and he gave it to Israel. All of a sudden, he got aroused. So there has to be something that arouses you. Okay, here we're not talking about necessarily an arousal for the state of Israel, but at least there's some sort of an arousal of a Jewish identity. It says this arousal from above. This is so. First of all, there has to be. First of all, the first God instigates. He starts off. He all of a sudden sends you a shock that you love God. Like it says, the kindness of God goes from the upper worlds to the lower worlds. Chesed Hashem olam ashira. It says the kindness of God. I will sing of the world. I will sing. Hu bechinas midregas Avram. This is the level of Abraham. Shezacha lios merkava lechesed zeh, that he was to this kindness of awareness of love of God. So when Abraham came along and he interpreted everything in the world, that it is an act of the kindness and the love of God, and he taught everybody about how good God is and how wonderful God is. God gives you eyes and he gives you a soul and he's giving you food. I'm giving you food. Thank God that's doing all these good things. That was Abraham. Like it says, Chesed LaAvram, kindness to Abraham. Shehi midas ahava. This is a natural love which is in the heart of every single Jew. Rakshu mesuteres, it is just concealed and hidden in a garment of sackcloth, which is the body and the animal soul. Right? Someone talks to you about God. You say, I don't say, where is he? I mean, I looked in a microscope, I looked in a telescope, I looked in everything, a stethoscope, whatever you want to. I don't see any God. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't feel any God. Why? Because our senses are totally occupied by the world and by ourselves and by our own imagination. And therefore, there had to be someone that came and shook everybody up and said, hey, there's God. God is creating the world. At the root of the Leila, this arousal from above, this gift, this instigation that instigate. And he said, first inspiration is la'orer ahava, to arouse love, that a person wants to remove his false garments that he's attached to the world, the dovkabot, to cling to God, and to call out to God, but sarlo, mikarav lev, from the depths of a person's heart, to make his heart drawn after God, like the nature, nafsho, a love, the nature of a Jewish soul on its own, automatically. So Abraham did good for non-Jews. that came them to appreciate God. But the Jew, when he gets the same exact thing, he comes to love God. What does it mean to love God? Does things that make no sense. Just now, there's a lot of stories coming out now from these prisoners that the Hamas has taken. I mean, they're tremendously cruel. The Hamas were very cruel. And one of them, he told the guy's not a religious person. He came out. They just one of these prisoner deals. They let him out. So he said that they said to me, they said to him, the Arabs, they said to him, if you become a Muslim, mitaslam, they call it. If you become a Muslim, then we'll go easy on you. We'll go easy on you. We'll give you food. We'll give you this. He said, and this person said, I was born a Jew and I'm going to die a Jew. Now, to him, I don't know how much Judaism made a difference to him in his life. I mean, all these people that were taken prisoners, they were all pretty much, I mean, maybe there were some exceptions, but almost all of them, 99% of them, they were in this kibbutz where they were in, Kfar Aza. Their whole thing was to make peace with the Arabs. That's why they were on the border, because they wanted to make peace, that they could intermarry. That was a big accomplishment. You know, they want anything for the sake of peace. The Arabs are our friends. We're treating them bad. We're keeping them in slavery. We're not right. And all of a sudden, the Arabs came. These were the people. These were the Hamas. These were the ones that everybody in Gaza was the same thing. They all sided with them. They were all cheering and they were all happy. And they took them all into prison. So these people were basically non-religious. A lot of them were anti-religious, because religion just divides us from the rest of the world. We have to. The world is one big nation, right? One big race of people. There's no this. So he said, "Okay, just become a Muslim, and we'll go easy on you." So he could have said, "Okay, you know what do I care? I have no connection to Judaism. I want to live. They'll give me food. They'll give me. It's cold. I mean, to spend a cold night in a cell, you know, and that's a tremendous torture. You know, how can you sleep? How can you get used to it? And you figure you're going to get sick. You know, they'll give me a blanket. They'll give me some food. All I have to do is say Allah Akbar. That's all, right? And Islam is not that different from Judaism. It's not that different, right? It's not the Christianity. They worship a person. They don't worship people. You can make all sorts of excuses. Why? He says, no way, I'm not going to leave my Judaism at all. I'm not even in my word. I'm not even going to say it. I'm not even going to lie and say that I'll accept it. All of a sudden, he became, what he became fanatic? What happened? These Arabs, these Hamas, they were the messengers to wake this guy up to who he really is. He says, well, once a person does wake up to what he is, when there's arousal from below, then there's an arousal from above. Then it arouses a person to this higher level of love. Aaron, that's the level of Aaron. Aaron is the high priest. This is much, much higher than love that comes from the world. Because love that comes from the world, this is comes from the chain of creation in levels from one level to the other. Somehow or other, you are inspired from something in the creation, some sort of a creation. I'm sorry. So that every level has some sort of a connection to the level which is before it. For instance, intellect goes into emotions, love and fear. So the love and fear you have is because of some idea you had in your mind that the emotions receive from intellect, which is in them. Also, your emotions come from your emotions come thought, and from thought comes speech. So each one has sort of a source before it. Therefore, love that comes from the world. So somehow or other, you always have, like the angels. The angels also love God, but they love God because they're being created. There's a higher level of them. It says that's why they say 3 times holy. Each level of the angels is calling out to the level which is above it. It has to jump up these different levels of it. So the levels are all being created. They're all some aspects of creation. But this level of love of our own hula maila, this is much higher than anything in creation, even spiritual. This is the level of revealing hamshacha islamshas orin sof, the revelation of God Himself into these different levels of chachma, namely to rereshi tehavot shel b'chachma, the beginning of the creation of chachma. Chachma comes from nothing. There's this higher level of love. This is feeling the essence of God Himself. She'ein aruch love. There's no comparison to it at all. Like it says, lav de'is lach tzedek tzediyah. There's no known. God is love and righteousness, but it's not incomprehensible. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. We're going to come back later to this. What's he saying? In the Tanya, it explains there's a difference between what's called a tzaddik and different levels of a tzaddik. The ultimate level of a tzaddik is a true human being. That's a true human being. A tzaddik is a person that he's totally in the world and he's totally not in the world. A tzaddik is a person that the world for him is totally a creation. It's a big miracle. Everything in the world is a miracle. And everything in the world is important because God is creating everything. So you have like the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Everybody that came into him was like a whole different world. Every detail of the person's life and every detail of the world, right? The Rebbe was a big expert in science and a big expert in art and a big expert in this, in languages and all these different things. The reason why, because everything in the world is a creation of God, and God is infinitely important. These people who feel what's called the upper love of God means that they feel true reality. They feel how precious and amazing this world is, and how infinitely precious is the fact that God is creating everything in the world. They feel the essence of God in everything. That's like the Holy Temple. That's like the Holy of Holies. That's Aaron. That's Aaron. And Aaron had to have garments. What is it in garments? To put this love into every single day, every moment of our life, that it becomes a garment for our soul. As we're going to talk about, God willing, tomorrow. And now let's do the Dvar Malchut.